Hi again. Page 311 of Christianity and the Social Crisis, Walter Rauschenbusch. Commerce has moved away from the golden age of competition when businessmen were like Ishmaels, with every man's hand against every other man. Large social groups are now working on the principle of cooperation in great corporations. This, of course, is 1907. I don't think he would speak that way now. That develops loyalty and human goodwill within the cooperative group, but only within it. Every trust still has a lot of outsiders whom it has to fight and tame into submission. The wonderful mechanism of a great department store is not directed merely to mutual service, but also to the undoing of its competitors. A board of directors may feel a sense of coherence, modified by a fear of treachery, but when they turn toward their employees and toward the public, the sense of solidarity ends. It is probably fair to say that the great business world is not appreciably influenced in its daily struggles by the consciousness that it exists to serve mankind. A minister, a doctor, a teacher, an artist, a soldier, or a public official may forget it often and may turn traitor to the principle altogether. But if he is good for anything, he will always feel the constraint of the higher principle upon him. In these callings, it is comparatively easy for a man to realize the joy and strength of that principle if he's only willing. In business life, the constraint is all the other way. The social value of business is reserved for ornamental purposes in after-dinner speeches. There, all professions claim to exist for the good of society. At a recent dinner of the Pawnbrokers Association of New York, Mr. Abraham Levy spoke of the company as the benefactors and bearers of the burdens of the poor, and doubtless he believed it when he said it. Every human institution creates a philosophy which hallows it to those who profit by it and allays the objections of those who are victimized by it. Thus, this name is something else, Poby Dunstef, the great procurator of the Holy Synod in Russia, taught the sacredness of the autocracy and thereby strengthened the hands of those who kept the people down. Where alcoholism dominates the customs of a people, it weaves a halo around itself in the songs and social observances of the people, till joy and friendship seem to be inseparable from mild narcotic paralysis of the nerve centers. Similarly, the competitive industry has its own philosophy to justify the ways of business unto men. Competition is the life of trade. If every man will do the best for himself, he will thereby do the best for society. These are the cliches of the business world, even back at the turn of the 20th century. In short, the surest way to be unselfish is to look out for number one. That's Rauschenbusch's summary of this state of mind. This individualistic philosophy was worked out at the end of the 18th century in order to cut away the artificial restraints inherited from a bygone period of industry. The noblest thinkers enthusiastically believed that the unfettered operation of self-love would result in happy conditions for all. Experience has proved this a ghastly mistake. Scientific thought and practical statesmanship have abandoned the policy of unrestrained competition. The more enlightened businessmen, too, view it with moral uneasiness and a certain shame. This is, of course, the era of Teddy Roosevelt. So taking apart the combines and the monopolies was very much in the air in the press. The more enlightened businessmen, too, view it with moral uneasiness and a certain shame. The selfish hardness of business life is to them a sad fact, but they feel they must play the game according to the rules of the game. Yet as long as competitive commerce continues and is the source of profit in the business world, competitive selfishness will be defended as the true law of life. As soon as the competitive philosophy of life encounters an opposing philosophy, in socialism, it is angrily insistent on its own righteousness. The same is the case when any attempt is made to urge the Christian law of life as obligatory for business as well as private life. Don't mix business and religion. Business is business. These common maxims express the consciousness that there is a radical divergence between the two domains of life, and that the Christian rules of conduct would forbid many common transactions of business and makes success in it impossible. Thus life is cut into two halves, each governed by a law opposed to that of the other. And the law of Christ is denied even the opportunity to gain control of business. When a man lives a respectable and religious life in one part of the city and a life of vice in another part, he is said to live a double life. That is the heartbreaking condition forced upon Christian businessmen by the antagonism of Christianity and competitive commerce. They have to try to do what Christ declares impossible, to serve God and mammon. It's no wonder that many try to maintain their faith in their own integrity of character by denying that business life is antagonistic to Christianity at all. But the rest of the community judge differently. The moral sincerity of the most prominent members of the churches is impugned by the public, which has little sympathy with the tragic situation in which Christian businessmen find themselves. This deeply affects the moral prestige of the churches in the community. They're forced into the defensive instead of challenging the community to a higher standard of morals. Put a link into an earlier Rauschenbusch segment where he makes the case that competition is not the universal law. Cooperation is. Christ won't share his throne with mammon.